Dorie Greenspan once burned down her parents' kitchen while attempting to make French fries as a teenager. She didn't try cooking again until she was in college and married, and we are certainly glad she gave it another shot.
She's now an award-winning, world-renowned cook, baker, and author. She's collaborated with some of the biggest names in the culinary world. Her 11th cookbook, Baking Chez Moi, will be released this week. The New York Times described her as a culinary guru, and we are thrilled to welcome Dorie Greenspan to The Dish. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
This is an extraordinary spread. What are you serving us here?
Bunches of things. Champagne, champagne, champagne.
Always
I
good.
love that you started there. Continue.
Well, I'm just looking over here. Okay, so we have gougère, which are cheese puffs. And when you come to my house in Paris, and I hope you will, this is what you get when you arrive. Champagne and gougère.
This sounds like a good trip.
Right? Come on. So, and chicken in a pot. So this is one of my favorite dishes, and I make it all the time because it's easy to make. Everyone loves it, and it's like my favorite dishes are dishes that you can play with. So I give you the recipe, and then you make it your own. So it's chicken. It's got, in this case, we've got sweet potatoes and celery and carrots and some lemon, and it gets sealed with dough.
So the dough is just on the top then, it's not underneath?
It's not even edible. It's just to seal, it seals the pot so that all of the good flavors stay in.
And the part that is edible is fabulous, by the way.
Thank you. I love this. And so, but you can make this with any vegetables that you have in the house. And I love that kind of playing around that we can do in the kitchen.
Let's talk about playing around, because we just embarrassed you properly and said you burnt down your parents' kitchen almost.
Yeah, it wasn't almost. I did a really good job of that.
What is the story there? Was that your first time cooking?
That was my first time cooking, and then I wasn't allowed to cook again. And yeah, no surprise, right? But I got married as a college student, and we had no money, and so I had to learn to cook, and I learned to love it. I'm self-taught. I learned from books and from great chefs, and that's how I started. I started because I had to.
But you were originally studying gerontology, is that right?
Yeah, and my mother was so looking forward to calling me Dr. Dorie. Yeah, but I always say it's the only deadline I didn't meet. I didn't write my dissertation.
Right.
And then after our son was born, our son, the adorable son, I started to bake full time and started to write full time. And I consider myself a really lucky person.
We have something in common then. My mom had also hoped to say Dr. Nair at one point, but I think we both made, and we made good choices,
it's okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think it's just fine.
I think a lot of people look to you and say she got social media before other people got it. How did you know? I mean, because now you even have cooking with Dorie, which I love the idea. Tuesdays,
okay.
yes.
So I always think that I just kind of stumble along and say yes to everything. And I'm always curious. And social media just seemed like when Twitter came around, Facebook, blogging, it just excited me to be in touch with people. And so, as a cookbook author, you work at your desk, you work at the oven,
right.
You send a book out into the world. You're sure your mother's going to buy it. My mother, who used her oven as a bread box, right? But when social media started, I realized people other than my mother were actually baking from my books, and I got so excited that I wanted to be in touch with them. And so this whole thing has really been very organic for me. I just wanted to be in touch. And yes, so there's a group that started in 2008 called Tuesdays with Dorie.
I love the name, clearly.
They baked their way all the way through Baking From My Home to Yours. Then when Around My French Table came out, and that's where this dish comes from, and actually everything that's savory, I'm saving dessert for last, French Fridays with Dorie started, and they cooked their way through Around My French Table. And now on November 1st, Tuesdays and Fridays are getting together.
Wow.
And every Tuesday, people will be baking from my new book, Baking Chez Moi.
You mentioned that you didn't come up the traditional way.
No, I didn't.
So, but you've worked with most of the greats. So how did this come to be?
I say luck, and people say, "Oh, that's not true." But it's a combination of saying yes, even when you're scared, and luck. And so, yeah, I worked with Danielle Boulou. I worked with Pierre Hermé, who's considered the Picasso of pastry in France, and I worked with Julia Child. I wrote Baking with Julia, and so I actually got to live with her and tape with her, and then write. And for me, I think that's my culinary education that I got.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. So that's how I really got to learn, and I collect recipes from everyone. So I just want to make sure you save room for dessert.
Always do.
Okay, so this is slow roasted spiced pineapple, and recipes come from, you never know where they're going to come from.
Right.
I get my hair cut by Isabel in Paris. Right next to Isabel is Laurent. This is Laurent's recipe.
Well, as we hand you this dish to get your signature on it,
Thank
we want
you.
to ask you if you could have this meal with any person, past or present, who would that person be?
Oh, easy. So 3 people. My husband, my son, and Julia. Julia would love this food. This would be Julia's ultimate dish.
I thought for sure your mom might be at that table also, but those are 3 wonderful picks.
Now you're making her feel guilty.
No.
Mom, come on, you're invited.
Chef Dorie Greenspan, thank you so much. And for more on Dorie Greenspan and the dish, head to our website at CBS This Morning.